Hey guys, welcome back to Econ Time with SK. So grab your notebooks, your favorite cup of coffee, and let's get started.
So in this video, we finally start our discussion on the different shift factors that affect your supply curve. So let's do a brief recap of what we mean by shift factors, right? And what do we mean by the supply curve is actually shifting, right? So essentially what we are saying is that these factors like change in the price of input or a change in technology or change in number of sellers, all of these things, they actually happen to shift your supply curve. So it's either going to be shifting in this direction or it's going to be shifting in this direction. So let's call this S1. Okay. So when it actually shifts to the right, so we're talking about a rightward shift. What does that actually mean? A rightward shift actually means that at every price, so at each and every price, amount being produced is actually going up. It is greater than before. So graphically, why don't we take a closer look? So what we are saying with this rightward shift is that before at P1, let's say, this firm or the market, whatever it is, like the firm was selling, let's say 10 units. But when there's a rightward shift, it means that at the same price, the firm is now able to produce more. So let's say it is now selling 15 units. Okay, so that is what a rightward shift means. It is just that the firm is now producing more at the given price. And on the other hand, if we were to talk about a leftward shift, so let's talk about S3. In this case, what would happen? The reverse. Let's say the firm was producing 10 units. What a leftward shift actually means is that now the firm is able to produce less. So when we are talking about a leftward shift, this means that at each and every price, whatever the price the firm is facing, it now can produce and sell less than before. Okay, so basically before it was producing 10 and now it's actually producing 7. Okay, so that is the difference between a leftward shift and rightward shift. And you may wonder that why do I keep on referring to each and every price? Well, that means that you'd be seeing the same pattern whether you were dealing with P1 or P2 or P3, whatever price it is. A rightward shift means more is being sold at that price, and a leftward shift means less is being sold at that price. So now we're actually going to look at what factors cause a rightward or a leftward shift. And remember, in this whole discussion, essentially, we're saying it is something else, as in it's actually a non-price factor that affects production. The price of the good actually remains unchanged. Okay, and you will see that like we were only talking about, hey, at P1 what happens? Before they were producing 10, later they're producing 15. But remember that we kept the price constant in our discussion. Okay, so let's deal with the first supply shift factor, that is the price of inputs. So let's start with a very simple example. Let's take the case of laptops. Okay, and for this, the input, let's say, are electronic chips. Okay, so let's say for some reason the price of chips goes up, which means the input price essentially is going up. If that is the case, what will happen? The cost of production for this firm is going to go up. And remember this, profit is equals to total revenue shown by TR minus total cost. So essentially when I am saying that the cost of production is going to go up, what this means is that the profit is going to go down. So for this firm, when the profit goes down, what happens? It is actually going to produce less laptops at each and every price. What that means is that whatever the market price is, the firm is now going to produce less laptops just because it's more costly to produce it. So this, of course, is technical term we can say. So essentially what that means is that the supply of laptops will fall. All right. So saying supply is going to fall is the same as saying they're going to produce less at each and every price. So that is why this is step 1, this is step 2. And then finally, we discuss the curve. So we are saying, look, in this case, the supply curve will shift. Now, let's get some clarity of how it will shift, okay? So let me just draw the supply curve here. So this is the supply curve of laptops. Always write the product at the top so that you don't get confused about whether you're talking about the input or the product itself. So write down that the analysis we're doing is for the product, that is laptops. Okay. And so let's say this is the supply curve we're dealing with. So essentially what we're saying is that whatever the price is, let's say the price is something like P1, and at this price the firm, let's say, was producing 2,000 units. Now, when the cost of production rises and the firm decides it's going to produce less, let's say that at the same price now, they are willing to produce 1,700 units. So what actually happens? Your supply curve now shifts actually inwards. Okay. So the supply curve goes from S1 to S2. It actually shifts inwards. So let's now complete that sentence. Supply curve will shift inwards, or you can say leftwards, from S1 to S2. Always make a reference to your graph. So S1 and S2 makes it very clear for me, the reader, or anybody who's reading it, that it goes from this curve to this curve. So you should always make it very clear to the reader on how they should be interpreting the curves that you're drawing. All right. So with this, we end the discussion on the first shift factor, and in the next videos, we're going to talk about the remaining shift factors.
All right, guys, I shall see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.